I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight to another class of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification course. For those of you here in the auditorium and for those of you that are online, we appreciate you being here, and we'll try to keep it as clear as we can for you. So we are in the responsibility unit, and we'll get started on it in just a minute. I did want to say also to give you the date. So it'll be 6/23 will be our next class. That's on Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Sunday, 5:30 p.m. this coming Sunday, 6/23. For those of you that are wondering what day that's going to be, you can pretty well count on Sundays and Wednesdays at 5:30 is when our classes are, unless we have some special event taking place or field day or something like that. So we're in the responsibility unit, and we've been talking about, and we're trying to see if we have any videos left at this time, but we've been talking about natural type disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, wind, thunderstorms, tsunamis, cyclones, you name it. All these things that can take place at the spur of a moment, pretty much. Now, some of these things you get a little advance notice that it's coming about, like hurricanes, for instance, and you can have a little bit of preparation time. Some people wait till the last minute, though, and they find themselves stuck. But some of the things you really don't get much warning, like the tornado. It zips in before you know it. The only warning you have is sounds like a freight train is outside and the wind is blowing, and all of a sudden, wham, it's there. 5 or 6 seconds later, it's gone and the damage is done. I mean, just terrible. So some people are aware of these things and have been involved in these things before. Some are not aware of how tragic they can be. And so we're focusing on some of these things, talking about preparation a little bit and so forth. So let's go on back and look. I think we ended up on page 136. We're going to just do a quick review on that and zip on over to page 137. But let's go on back to the lesson plan first and kind of see where we're at. So procedure number 5. So we're going to go over that again too. It says, tell students that unlike hurricanes that can be detected by the Weather Bureau's days in advance, we just talked about that a little bit, tornadoes can occur unexpectedly. Even if there's a thunderstorm warning and you looked at the maps and everything and the rain's coming your way, these tornadoes can pop up in the spur of a moment. All it takes is the right wind pattern to kick in. It starts a little bit of rotation, it's over with. So and we talked about the speed of the tornadoes between 300 and 500 miles per hour, right there at the spot where it's doing the worst damage. That's amazing, 300 to 500 miles an hour. It's going to tear stuff up. We've seen semi-trucks thrown off to the side like it was a Tonka toy. We've seen trees uprooted from the ground, and whole houses lifted off the foundation and thrown far away. And the country that has the most tornadoes is the United States. So 800 tornadoes a year approximately, and I think it's increased a little bit, but it says to read the section tornadoes found on page 137 and 140, stress that tornadoes are dangerous, and if we're warned that one is in the area where we live, we should seek appropriate safe shelter immediately, okay? And so that's page 137 to 140. I told you we're going to go look at 136 just real quick to make sure of a couple things there. So it asks the question, do you know what you should do if a dangerous hurricane is expected to pass where you live? This is page 136, what you should know. And then it talks about there must first be specific weather conditions, and it goes into that a little bit. But it also suggests listening to the weather reports to make preparation for you and your properties to survive. And we talked about it last class a little bit on how when I lived in Houston, and some of you here have also, I remember the boarding up of windows. It's something that we did, about once a year. We'd end up boarding up windows on our dwellings and local businesses and so forth. And then after the hurricane had come through, if it was as powerful as they expected, you could always look up at the skyscrapers and see some windows had been blown out. They didn't tear any skyscrapers down that I know of, but it sure did pull some windows out of those things. When you look up on one that's 110, let's see, actually 85 stories, I think was the tallest one at the time. But you look up there and you see splotches of just black where the windows were, you know. You could count 10 or 20 of them or whatever that had come out, and you know they get blown all over the city. You wouldn't want to be in the path of one of those plates of glass or the shards that come from it. So some of the things you can do to pay attention to the weather reports. The National Weather Service knows days in advance when there might be a possible hurricane coming, what towns it could possibly affect, how fierce it's probably going to be, and how long it might last. And now, these are very educated guesses from experience and from the schooling and knowledge that they have, and from what they've seen in the past. They can guess the path pretty well. Sometimes they're off a little bit though, and when it hits with a vengeance. But they are able to warn people at least 24 to 36 hours in advance, so you could do something, to prepare for it. And in those hurricanes, winds in excess of 155 miles an hour can be life-threatening. So tornadoes, and the hurricanes are usually more associated with the coastal regions. Yeah, the hurricane does make it into land, makes landfall, but depending upon how powerful it is, it might not go very far. But the coastal regions, especially right there on the very coast, I've seen Mississippi. Well, when Hurricane Katrina came through, I had been to Florida and Mississippi quite a few times along that coast, Destin and I think Gulf Shores, a few places like that. And when I went down there after Katrina, it was just, I couldn't even tell where I was at almost. I mean, the places were just tore completely up. The few places there on the coast, I think there was I think it was a casino, Hard Rock Cafe, stuff like that. These places, these landmarks, they were just torn completely up. Nothing left of them. And then buildings just totally knocked down and gone that used to be there. So it can be pretty devastating. And then the cleanup afterwards and the rebuilding and so forth, it just takes many, many years. So we're going to move on to page 137, tornadoes, and a little more experience there with that. As some of you, I know I talked to a few of you after class a couple of days ago, and many of you have been through tornadoes or seen the devastation of tornadoes too. So the word tornado means to thunder. A tornado is a rotating funnel cloud that extends toward from a mass of dark clouds. Large thunderstorms appear in the sky. Rounded masses at the bottom of the clouds start to twist. One of the twisting masses forms a funnel that gradually extends downward, and some funnels do not reach the earth, which I don't know if we'll be able to see it tonight, but one of the videos that we watched a few days ago consisted of some storm chasers following a huge tornado, and they gave us a couple different ones that they followed, but you could see where it would come down and it would kind of stay there for a little bit and never reach the ground, still doing some damage with the wind. But when it did hit the ground, that's when you started seeing all the debris flying around, and it was doing its damage right there at that point where it was hitting. And some of them, it's not a point, it's a wide swath, like a mile and a half wide, cutting through the middle of a town or something, and changing direction every now and then. Okay, some funnels don't reach the earth. Others might touch down and withdraw into the clouds above, only to dip down and strike the earth again. Tornadoes move over land, sometimes over short distances, sometimes miles at a time. Whatever is in their path can run the risk of much damage and destruction. And for those of you who are wondering, the peaceful solution, the reason we talk about these things is because it is our responsibility. Remember the responsibility unit, okay? It's our responsibility to be prepared to take care of ourselves, our families, and our belongings when there's a situation like this coming up. I mean, even with all the preparation you do, it might not turn out well, but it's more likely to if you do prepare and have a plan of action. So we want to be responsible, and that's what this book is about, being responsible. The strongest tornadoes can lift houses from their foundations, flip cars, trucks, school buses over, pick up people, cows and other animals. It can pick up those railroad cars from their tracks and whirl them away to another location. The high winds and pressure in the center of the funnel can also cause buildings and other structures to explode if they are not properly ventilated. Tornadoes occur in many parts of the world. Australia, China, England, Russia, India, and Germany have all had their share of tornadoes, resulting in loss of life and property damage. However, with an average of 800 tornadoes a year, resulting in 80 deaths and over 1,500 injuries yearly, the United States has by far the highest annual average of tornadoes in the world. Most tornadoes in the United States occur east of the Rocky Mountain region, known as Tornado Alley, and although tornadoes are most likely to occur in these states, all other states have experienced at least one tornado. Texas holds the record. I didn't know that. I thought Oklahoma or Arkansas held the record for the tornadoes, but Texas holds the records for the tornadoes. That's something for us to know there, since we all live in Texas. That's right here in the auditorium. Some interesting information there. I really didn't know that. That's kind of amazing, actually. All right, let's go on over to page 138. A few quick facts. Tornadoes produce the most powerful winds on Earth. Okay, again, we've already talked about the winds reaching speeds of 300 to 500 miles an hour, which is mighty fast. The speed, if you think you're going to stand up against a tornado, it ain't going to work. You can't stand there and be direct hit with a tornado and expect to survive. I mean, you're going to get picked up and thrown away and beat up and torn up and ripped apart and everything else, you know. And so there we go again. The speed at which the wind whirls in a tornado has been clocked between 300 and 500 miles an hour. They can turn harmless objects into dangerous missiles. Check this out right here. This is pretty amazing. Straws of wheat are turned into arrows and have been found embedded as much as an inch deep into tree trunks. Now, you can find a lot of this on the internet. You can find many videos and pictures and so forth. You know, be prepared, though, when you're getting stuff off the internet. If you're going to use it in a classroom situation, you might want to find out for sure if it is copyrighted or if it is going to be, if it's okay to be used in a educational process. You know, you'll want to find that out. Otherwise, you could find yourself getting sued or what have you, you know. Most tornadoes spin counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, clockwise and clockwise in the southern hemisphere. Most tornadoes occur between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 7 o'clock in the evening, and in the spring and summer months on a hot, humid day. Tornadoes can reach heights of 60,000 feet. I was just thinking about something there. It says most tornadoes spin counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, that's us, and clockwise in the southern hemisphere, that's, you know, below the equator there. And I recall being down in that area before in Argentina, and I really forgot all about filling up the sink and watching which way it drains, you know, because they say that down there that it drains counterclockwise, where up here it drains clockwise, I believe. So, but I forgot to check that, so I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't see it with my own eyes, that is. But amazing tornado story. Here we go. March 18th, 1925, the greatest killer tornado roared through Illinois, Missouri, and Indiana, killing, wow, 689 people. It was one of the largest and fastest tornadoes ever recorded. Now, normally, when you hear about a tornado, or at least the slight time I've been alive, when I hear about a tornado and it rips through a town and does an extreme amount of damage, you might hear, 4 or 5 people that were killed, which is tragic. I'm not trying to make light of it by any means, but 4 or 5 people that are killed. Rarely would you ever hear of one much more than that, even though I do remember one time 15 people and so forth. But 689 people? Really? Now that's over 3 states, but 689 people. And I guess that's why it's called the greatest killer tornado, because that's just massive. And that was in 1925. In 1974, 148 tornadoes developed between April 3rd and 4th. That's, just a 2-day period there. 148 tornadoes, and this is in Alabama and Ohio, killed 315 people in 2 days in 2 states. The largest number of observed tornadoes in the U.S. in the first half of the 20th century occurred in Kansas, Iowa, Texas, and Oklahoma. There's Oklahoma. West of the Rockies, however, tornadoes are infrequent and generally small compared with the Midwest. Nonetheless, Oregon and western states have experienced tornadoes on occasion, many of them producing significant damage and occasionally causing injury or death. Seems like wherever you go, there's going to be some extreme weather of some type, and as you move west, like they're talking about, you get away from the tornadoes, but then you've got something else rumbling your way, which we might get to here in a minute. But I want you to think about how, if you've ever been in a tornado, think back and decide, okay, I see a few hands going up in here actually, but were you prepared for that? Did you know that there was a tornado coming? Did your parents, if you were young enough, did they have a plan of action? Did they say, come on, we're going here, or we want to all, get in the shower or the hallway or something away from the windows and stuff like that? Did they have a plan? Maybe going to a local shelter or something. I know there's a local shelter in this community that works pretty well, and I know a lot of people have made use of it before when there's inclement weather or extreme things going on. So be prepared. That's what we're talking about. The following, if you turn to page 139, now let's see. Okay, yep, 139. The following is a true story of one young man's experience in a tornado. Now, I like to hear about the experiences because it gives me an idea, kind of like a starting point or a marker on what I need to do. The more I hear about things that have taken place, the more I can prepare, or I think I can prepare a little bit better. I don't necessarily want to experience it all the time. I'd like to hear about it and be able to learn from that if I could. So on May 6, 2003, my parents and I had just gotten home from my baseball practice. It was real windy, and so we went inside. We got a phone call and were told there was a tornado heading towards us. Now, I know that when people hear something like this, there's a little bit of time of denial. It's like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, or I've been through tornadoes before, or this always occurs, it's no big deal. But they're telling them that a tornado is heading towards them, and now's the time to take action. We went into the bathroom, so they did take action. Then the tornado picked up the house and slammed it down. It was hard to breathe because we were in the eye of the tornado. Then the tornado slammed down again and carried our house over a field about 150 yards. Wow. 150 yards, that's way back there. In fact, a little bit further probably than where that hand came up. We're talking about way back there. It's way out in the parking lot, I believe, so I'm trying to remember the days of short sprint running, and how long it would take to get there. So I think it's out in the parking lot. I think it's way out there, 150 yards. So if you could imagine your house being ripped up and you're still in it, in the bathtub or somewhere. You're in that house and it gets ripped up off the foundation, and you're going through the air and don't know what's going on, being slung around and everything, and then it slams down on the ground again. So it says after it landed 150 yards away, then it sucked us out. So they got sucked out of the house. They landed in a field. This young man says he broke his leg in 2 places and also his arm. His mom and dad were not hurt. Our house was totally destroyed except for the roof, and it landed in the lake behind our house. Now let me ask you a question. How are you going to clean that up? Is somebody going to come do it for you? You're going to have to figure out a way. If you've got some property like out in the country or something, and your house is lifted up off the foundation and taken all that far away and ripped apart, you're sucked out and the roof is laying over in the pond or the lake or whatever it is, what are you going to do to clean that up? You've got a job on your hands. Now, I know the National Guard comes around and helps with cleanup activities and so forth, you know. Excuse me. But I don't know if they go around to every person that has 5 or 10 or 20 acres out there, you know, and got a pond on it and all. I don't know if they come around and do that. It might be more focused on the central population area. So anyway, the roof landed in the back behind the house. The tornado was a F4, and it traveled over 30 miles with the wind over 250 miles per hour. There were 2 people who were killed because of the tornado. Now, one of them was the lady who was our neighbor, who was thrown from her trailer into a pond, and another was a man who lived up the road. A chimney fell on him while he was protecting his son. Now, this is from a 10-year-old young man from Illinois, and you can see the website there, or the link if you wanted to go look at it and read it. So advanced warning is your best defense. Now, we've been talking about this, and we repeat it over and over again. Probably tired of hearing about it, you know, I'm not sure, but you'll probably hear a little bit more about it along the way, too. And so let's see what we got going with the video here. Okay. Hang on just a minute. Okay. As you can see from Travis's story, tornadoes can be dangerous, and this is why being responsible to learn all you can about them and what you and your family can do to survive if one were to hit where you live is so important. Once again, the Weather Bureau's advance warning is one of the best ways to prepare for and survive a tornado. And like I said before, where I lived in the Little Rock area of Arkansas, where I used to live, and I think one comes on here, I just think we're a little bit farther away from the central area that possibly we don't hear it all the time. But on Wednesdays at 12 noon, there are many towns across the United States that fire up their tornado warning system. And you can hear it. I know in Little Rock I lived, I don't know, from where the siren was, I lived 5 to 10 miles away, and I could hear it clearly go off. I expected it to go. You can set your clock by it, you know. 12 o'clock noon on Wednesdays, that thing was going off. Okay, so a tornado warning is issued if a tornado is detected on radar or if a responsible person sights a tornado and reports it to the nearest Weather Bureau office or a community warning center. Once a tornado is sighted, warnings are sent out quickly over television and radio. And I've been in different towns when the news was following these heavy storms, and you know, different ones approach it differently. I've seen some places that they shut down all the programs and they do nothing but stand there with their whole crew. You know, at least 3 or 4 of them that are on the computers, and they give a just moment by moment play, and they narrow it down and can tell, within about a 10-mile area, 15-mile area, possibly 20, they can tell this thing is going right here. If you live in this town, you need to take cover now. And that's the way they say it. They're very firm about it. And you can watch them and see, even in a heavy thunderstorm, even though there's no tornado warning or even a tornado watch yet, they will be following this through. And that's really, I find that to be a very great benefit with some of these news stations that do that. Some of them don't do that. Some of them will let you know, okay, there's been a tornado spotted, take cover if you're around. Okay, back to our program. So it depends on where you're at, really. I mean, not everybody is as diligent as the other ones, okay? But once a tornado is sighted, warnings are sent out quickly over television and radio. It doesn't become, it changes from a watch to a warning, okay? That's a critical point right there. When you see on your news, on your cell phone, if you see on your news where there's a tornado watch, okay, it's a watch. There's possibility one could form. There's probably a thunderstorm or something. But when you see that warning on there, it's inevitable that if a tornado is coming, towards whatever direction they say it's coming, it's on the way. It's been spotted. Now, it might dissipate. It could. But, be prepared for those things. Alrighty. Let's turn on over to page 140. So, I don't know, could someone check and see if one of those videos was available? Is that a yes? No. Okay, it's a no. Okay. All right. So, we'll forget about the videos for tonight. Okay, page 140. So these warnings, like the ones that are sent out over television and radio, it'll let you know when the tornado, a lot of them will, when it was first detected. It'll let you know the area through which it is expected to move and the time it is most likely to strike. Many towns also have sirens that sound in case of emergency, like we were just talking about. And in case you're not near a TV or radio, the sound of the siren will warn those in the immediate vicinity that a life-threatening storm or tornado is on the way. If nothing else, it's a reminder for you, to be watchful. People in the direct path of a tornado should consider that their lives are at risk and should seek shelter immediately. If you are at home, a basement, bathroom, closet, interior hallway, these things will offer you the best protection. Now, I know I talked about it before. If it's in the daytime and you can see the tornado, well, you got an idea of where it's going. I'm not telling you to do this, but I have found it very beneficial in my case to, when I looked out and I saw that tornado heading my way and it was still, 5 miles away, moving at 35 miles an hour, guess what? I know I can get in my car and I can get out of there. I know I can do that. So that would be my choice. Now at night, you don't really have that luxury because you don't know where it's at. It's just coming, it's around somewhere, and you better take cover, I'm telling you. But I don't like that idea of getting locked up in the freezer of a store somewhere and the tornado's still 20 miles away and all that. I mean, I don't know. That might be a safe measure for some people. I'm sure it probably is. But anyway, so if you're at home, the basement, bathroom, closet, whatever is the best protection. Time permitting, you should shut off the electricity, water, and gas. Now that's an interesting thing there. I've really never thought to do that during one of the storms. But I can see where it would be very important because the live wires flying around, water shooting up everywhere, gas pipes broken and blowing off, and then a spark from the electricity or a flame somewhere can really send it up. So yeah, that would be a great thing to do. Most people do have access to their gas or their propane line, and also to the breaker box where maybe out on the pole even where they could turn off the electricity. Don't get electrocuted in the process of trying to do something, though. If it's raining and the wind is blowing and everything, be very, very careful. It's not playtime. Um, so it also talks about opening some windows to avoid the destructive pressure that builds up in a tightly closed building and actually, blows out and breaks everything. So if you can, open a few windows. Don't try to do this, though, if the tornado is very close. People have been literally sucked out of their windows and killed during tornadoes because they didn't seek shelter soon enough. I mean, that would be a catastrophic thing, a very scary thing to be sucked out the window and flying around, not knowing where you're going to land or what's up there hitting you in the head. If you're flying around inside a tornado, there's got to be other stuff flying around you. Now, how to act responsibly during a tornado. If you are in a car or a mobile home, get out, find a ditch, lay flat in it. Cover your head with your arms to protect yourself from flying debris. Remember, tornadoes can produce the strongest winds on the planet, and these winds can rip concrete surfaces from off highways. They can peel bark off trees and roll cars, buses, trains, mobile homes, etc. And if you hear that a tornado's in your area, think safety first and seek shelter immediately. I'm sorry, I chuckled a little bit there. It wasn't anything about the tornadoes. It was about another type of emergency warning that we used to have when I was a child in California. And we would hear the alarm go off, and it was time for everybody to climb up under their desk and put their heads down. If you saw a flash through the window, that was the nuclear bomb that was about to land. So I don't know how much that would help in the case of a nuclear bomb being nearby where you could even see the flash going down. I mean, crawling up under your desk and putting your head down. I'm just not sure how much benefit that would be. Not that it would be any different than anything else you could probably do at the time. So I'm sorry, I couldn't help but chuckle a little bit about it because I actually went through that. So I heard someone else chuckling up here. I think he probably did too when he was a child in California. So, okay, enough of that. Do you know what a tornado sounds like? We've covered a lot of this stuff already, but if you really don't know, you really can't know what it sounds like. The people describe it as a freight train or, as extreme winds and really until you hear it and you're in the middle of it and everything, there's just nothing like it. I guess the train thing might be the closest thing to it as it's approaching, the ground shaking, if you've ever lived near a train and the rumbling that takes place. I know where I'm at here at headquarters in Abilene, we occasionally feel the ground rumble and everything from jets that are cranking up quite a ways away, about 20 miles away. And you can feel those things. They are massive. They're very powerful, and they do shake the ground even this far away. But the tornado is louder than that. I don't know if it would be right up close to it, but all right. So when a tornado is high in the air, observers have reported that it sounds like the buzzing of millions of bees. I never heard that one before, except in this description. The shrill, high-pitched shriek might change to a deafening roar like a train when the cloud dips to the ground and starts churning up the earth. And that's probably when you would start feeling it the most. And anybody who saw that video the other night showing the tornado hitting the ground, and you could see when the dirt was sucked up in it and started swirling in there, it displaces a lot of dirt. Okay, so I think over the past several classes, we've really covered a lot on these storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, etc. And we're not quite done. We've got just a little bit more. So let's go on back to the lesson plan, and let's look and see where we're at. All right, so we are going to begin procedure number 6. It says to inform students that earthquakes are another dangerous and often unpredictable disaster that cause the deaths of thousands of people each year worldwide. Anybody ever been in an earthquake here? Okay, see quite a few hands up. Okay. So ask students to name the three main types of earthquakes, which you could do in a little close-knit environment. The tectonic, volcanic, and artificial. These are the three different types of earthquakes: tectonic, volcanic, and artificial. It says to tell students that of the three, tectonic is by far the most destructive and deadly. Have students read the section Earthquakes on pages 141 through 143 and emphasize that although earthquakes can be unpredictable, finding out if you live in an earthquake-prone area and then taking precautions are just some of the ways you can take responsibility for your safety. So, earthquake areas, I know, well, we'll get to it in just a minute. So pages 141 through 143, let's go there real quick. Page 144 in your responsibility booklet. And now, for those of you that are online too, keep in mind that you can go to the top of the website, whether you're on the app on the phone or whether you're on your desktop computer, and you should be able to find a drop-down menu that has the different books in there, and you can look on this. You can follow along with us in the responsibility book, or you can even print it off. You can actually go and look at all the books that we've been through so far in this program, in the teacher certification course, and you can download them, do whatever you want to do there. You just can't go out selling it, okay? And you can't change it either. So, all right. So, page 141. Now, this is earthquakes. Earthquakes can also cause great loss of life and property by destroying buildings, bridges, and dams. And now there's been many devastating earthquakes that we've seen recently in the news in different areas of the world. I remember one particularly in Oakland, California, it's been quite some years ago, but I mean, bridges were falling down. You know, concrete bridges that cars are on, bridges are falling down. They're just being obliterated and falling on cars, and people lost their lives. I don't know how many people were killed in that. It might even be in here. I can't remember if it is or not, but we'll read about some other ones. So, earthquakes can cause great loss of life and property. The power of an earthquake can cause telephone and power lines to fall, fires, explosions, landslides. In California, a lot with landslides. A lot of houses are built right on the edge of the cliff, and when the rain comes and there's mudslides, and when earthquakes come, there's landslides, and they just fall right down into the ocean or onto the beach, and people rebuild right away. Generally, there are three classes of earthquakes: tectonic, volcanic, artificial, and tectonic is by far the most damaging and devastating of the three. Tectonic quakes are caused when the plates that make up the Earth's surfaces slide and bump against each other. Where these plates meet are called fault lines. When these plates slide against each other, they cause the Earth to vibrate. Many of these vibrations are barely noticeable, but others are so strong they cause the Earth to split and buildings to collapse, resulting in thousands of people dying. There are many countries that are located over the Earth's fault lines. For example, Portugal, Morocco, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Iran, and India. The state of California is located over a fault line. It's called the San Andreas Fault. In my elementary school, the last one that I was in before going to junior high, that elementary school some years ago was condemned, and they had to build a new one because it was right on top of the worst part of the San Andreas Fault, this very one they're talking about. And so they shut it down and built another one. And the thing is about earthquakes, you do feel that little rumble. You can, and if you're in California, you know what it is. You're not even thinking it's a tornado or a thunderstorm. You know it's an earthquake, and almost all the time. And it occurs quite often. You'll start feeling that little rumble, and you'll say, "Oh, earthquake," you know, and that's it. It's kind of like, who cares, you know, everyday stuff. But now every now and then it gets a little heavier, and you might see a dish trying to fall off the cabinet or something, which you know you got something now, okay? And there's something serious going on. Then you start wondering, okay, how bad is this going to be? But although earthquakes have been very difficult to predict in recent years, seismologists, that's scientists who study earthquakes, have had some success in predicting when and where an earthquake will strike. In 1975, the Chinese predicted an earthquake would hit the city of Haicheng. They evacuated 90,000 residents 2 days before the quake destroyed 90% of the city's buildings. Wow, that's massive. And they evacuated the place. That's great thinking. They got in there and did that, evacuated 90,000 people. Most earthquakes, however, are not predicted in time, and many people die. In September '85, a major quake shook Mexico City, leaving 30,000 people homeless and 7,000 dead. On Friday, January 6, 2001, a major earthquake killed 100,000 people in India. Wow. Quick facts on page 142. Humans can start earthquakes by detonating atomic explosives underground and by pumping fluids deep into the earth through wells. A tsunami is a large ocean wave generated by an undersea earthquake, and these waves can travel hundreds of miles across the ocean floor and reach speeds of 450, 500 miles an hour. Sounds a lot like the tornado. By the time it reaches the shore, it can be more than 50 feet high, with the potential to wipe out entire coastal towns. All right, so continuing on with some survival tips for earthquakes when they come here. If you live in an earthquake-prone area, being responsible in what you can do could mean the difference between life and death. Remember, earthquakes are often unexpected, so the best thing to do if you live in an area prone to earthquakes is to have a plan. Heavy bookcases should be bolted to the wall. Heavy books should be placed on the bottom shelves. Heavy objects falling onto someone is often the cause of injury or death. Ask your parents to find out if your home meets all the building codes, and a house with a weak foundation is more likely to suffer severe damage during an earthquake. So that really was the only direction much that we had about earthquakes. If we were at school and one was taking place, we would all evacuate the building and go out into the ball field or something, or the arena, not the auditorium. You'd stay out of buildings. So we'd be out in an open area, I guess, so we could see the earth splitting as it comes our way. But that was really the only thing you could do, is get away from falling objects and broken glass. That's what you were trying to do in case of an earthquake. Okay. And there's been a lot of earthquakes. There's so many earthquakes. I heard a teacher talking about earthquakes last week, in fact, and talking about the massive amount of earthquakes all over the earth, but especially here in the United States too. It's way higher than it used to be. So it's also recommended that you sleep with a pair of sturdy shoes and a flashlight near your bed. And that way, if you're in bed when the quake starts, you can roll out of bed, slip on your shoes, grab your flashlight. Broken glass and other debris could make walking on the floor dangerous. Yeah, you should have something nearby, some slippers, shoes, something nearby, and always the flashlight. I mean, how many times have you gotten up in the middle of the night and the power was off, or you heard something and you want to see what was going on, and having a flashlight's very handy for all of those things and very handy for your survival. If the place was torn apart and you had a flashlight in your hand, at least you would have that. So during an earthquake, this is page 143, during an earthquake, get in a doorway or under a sturdy object like the kitchen or dining room table. Don't leave your home during the shaking unless there's a great possibility that your home will collapse. Many injuries occur from falling debris outside, such as bricks, shards of glass, or tree limbs. And after the initial quake, there might be a few minutes for you and your family to get to a safe place, outdoors, away from any falling debris if you think your home's in real danger of collapsing. If not, remain inside under sturdy protection until aftershocks have stopped and calmed down to a safe level. Keep in mind that aftershocks can be just as dangerous as the initial quake. So if you are in a safe place, just stay there. If your home has lost power and you're in the dark, use your flashlight. Do not light matches or lighters because there could be broken gas lines around that cause explosions, and that does occur. Be sure to go over these survival tips with your family so that in the event of an earthquake, you will all be prepared by knowing what to do, where to go if you're going somewhere, and so forth. And probably everyone would have their own little job there. You know, somebody's job is to, turn this off. Somebody's job is to grab a flashlight. Somebody's job is to do this, have it all planned out. So be sure to go over these survival tips with your family. That way you will be prepared. And then it says down below that, think about it. When it comes to natural disasters, the most responsible thing you can do is follow the emergency personnel's instructions and evacuate the area if you're told to. Is there anybody here in the auditorium that has been involved in a serious earthquake before? Okay, one or two. All right. And three. Okay. So we know what it's like, and I haven't been in a serious earthquake. I've been in one where the dishes and everything were kind of falling off the shelves and stuff like that, and I was thinking it could be a little bit more serious, but it turned out the serious part of it was a little bit a ways from me. And but it does make you think. It makes you stop and think about it when it starts getting a little bit serious. Up until then, when it's just a couple little tremors and you can feel it under your feet, but that's it. It's kind of like you just don't really care. It's just another day. So all these natural type disasters, we have not really much control over it at this time. So the only control that we have is the ability to be prepared for these things when they take place. And as far as being prepared to not like losing your property, for instance, it's probably not going to occur because these things travel where they want to travel, and they do it at the speed and the velocity and the depth of it how they want to do it. It's nothing you can stop. The best you can do is prepare for safety for you and your family. So there's a couple more types of destruction that we should keep in mind that could come our way. It's a little bit different than the natural disaster type thing, but yet it is disasters. And we've seen this take place already many times over. If you watch the news, if you live in the United States, there's one that everybody knows about, the Twin Towers, unless you just were born probably. But back 20-something years ago, there was a big deal there, and this is called terrorism. So on page 144, let's see where we're at as far as our lesson plan goes. I know I'm covering a few pages here, but okay. Let's go to procedure number 7. It says to inform students that terrorism, which is a man-made disaster, can also result in catastrophic loss of life and property. Explain that terrorism is a result of hate, aggression, and violence, and emphasize that hate and aggression are negative character traits that can be controlled if we can learn to be morally responsible to others. And then turn to page 144, 145. Okay, so one of the things to keep in mind, let's go ahead and turn there. One of the things to keep in mind about terrorism is, okay, so here we are. This is something that, again, you don't really have, you don't have control over whether someone's fixing to blow up your house or not. The best you can do is try to stay off the radar of anybody that would want to blow up your house. If you're an activist and you're out there talking about different ethnicities and talking about running your mouth, saying, "Oh, I dare you to attack me," or whatever. If you do that kind of stuff, then don't be surprised if something comes your way. But for most of us, we're going to be quiet about the situation, and we're going to be watching and maybe thinking about what we could do to help to try to alleviate the situation. I know the author of The Peaceful Solution always talked about terrorists just like everybody else. Now, let me just put a disclaimer on this real quick, because I said this in one class and somebody took it totally wrong. And it's possibly because I wasn't clear about it. So let me be clear. I am not for terrorism, okay? And neither was the author of The Peaceful Solution, and I'm sure neither are you sitting in this room or online watching this. You wouldn't be trying to learn about peace, would you? And how to teach peace. So I'm not for terrorism. At the same time, even a terrorist has something they're trying to achieve. They have some type of goal that might have started out as something very lofty. They might have thought, well, here I am in this decrepit land, and I'm seeing all these children starve and people dying. I want to make a change here. And so they had the right idea to begin with to make a change, but along the way they went the wrong way and decided to try to do it with violence and force, okay? Now, I mentioned this once before in a class, and it was talking about people that used other people in a very degrading way, and then people even nowadays that have hatred towards one another. It might not have started out that way. They might have been trying to achieve some lofty goal, and then along the way they got twisted, they got deceived, things went crazy, and they ended up on the far end of the scale being a very vicious, hateful animal, dangerous to society and everybody, okay? Everybody got that one? Okay? I'm not for terrorism, I'm not for racism, I'm not for any kind of hatred or war, okay? And neither are any of you sitting here, I'm quite sure of it, or you wouldn't be. I see the same faces in here over and over and over again wanting to learn how to be a teacher of the Peaceful Solution. So I know that's not in your heart to do anything like that. Are we going to make mistakes along the way sometimes? Maybe say something that somebody takes wrong, or we might have said it without thinking. We're always thinking, but might have said it without careful thought, Yeah, we can do those things, and we're going to mess up along the way sometimes, and all we can do is ask forgiveness. So if I've done anything to offend anybody on anything I've said about terrorism or racism, anything like that, please forgive me, okay? I'd just like you to know that, all right? So this terrorism, though, the people, if we could sit down, and this is where the Peaceful Solution comes in. If we were able to sit down with a terrorist and find out what their goal was, okay, what's really going on here? We might find, well, they don't like the way the people's being treated. They don't like that they don't have hospitals or schools or something like that for the people. They might not like that there's children dying on the street. They don't have enough to eat. And all they want to do is something about that. And to get rid of the political corruption, and knowing that there's billions of dollars of aid coming into their country, but they don't see any of it. But there's politicians that are living lavishly. So they get this idea and they want it to change, but violence is not the way for change. So what they're really doing is vengeance and retaliation and revenge. So if someone truly wanted to make that change and they were willing to sit down and talk about it, and we were willing to listen and try to help them, put ourselves in their shoes, empathy, and with compassion, and being a great listener. All the things we've been learning in the Peaceful Solution. Who knows? You might be doing this very thing within the next year. I mean, I look around and I see in the news the things that are taking place. I mean, it looks like there's going to be a lot of people hurting everywhere. And I don't think people are going to have a bunch of bombs left over when it's all done. They probably won't have any food and all this. So we need to learn how to talk to people. We need to learn how to truly care about other people without preconceived notions. So, anyway, unlike natural disasters, terrorism is man-made and deliberate. Terrorism is defined as the use of violence or the threat of violence to create a climate of fear in a given population. One of the other things that the author talked about, excuse me for just a minute here, because we can't get deep into this page anyway, but one of the other things that he talked about was, when people are convicted of a crime, and, something heinous you might hear about, and a lot of people immediately want to, he needs to be hung up by his thumbs, or you need to take that guy out there and hang him, or what have you. You're making these rash judgments about what needs to be done. And, maybe he goes to court and he's found guilty, and you're like, oh, he needs to be put away for life, and maybe they do. And you're like, yeah, that's what needed to go down with that guy. But did anybody ever talk to him and see what his problem really was? How did he grow up? What occurred in his life when he was a young child in those formative years? What took place? What kind of animalistic, dangerous, evil things took place in that person's life before they did the heinous crime that they did? Am I saying it's excusable? No. Am I saying, well, he should have known better? No, I'm not saying that, because he didn't know better, because he was never taught the right way. So, giving someone the punishment without teaching that person about what was taking place and what they did, and it'd be better to teach them on the front end before they ever commit a crime. But if you go back and teach them what they did and teach them where they went wrong and where society went wrong around them, and to learn to accept things and not blame others and forgive and use self-control and all the many things we learn in the Peaceful Solution. You get all of that together and sit down and talk with those people, and guess what you get? A lot of times you have somebody that understands, and they can't even believe how they were treated and taught, and how they held on to those things all their life, with hatred and revenge being their only source of what they were looking for. But you can see these people turn around. I know there's some of you sitting here tonight that have been through things and been to jail, been through all kinds of horrid things. But you know what? You're sitting here right now, over and over again, trying to learn and learning the Peaceful Solution and learning how to teach the Peaceful Solution. One of the strongest, most diligent Peaceful Solution teachers that I know is sitting here just in front of me, and he spent a lot of time. He'll tell you, he's told you before, he spent a lot of time in jail because he was never taught the right way. And so he just went with what he felt like doing, like a lot of people do. Once he was taught the right way, guess what? Bam! He turned it around, and now for, over 20 years, well over 20 years, he's been teaching the Peaceful Solution. I mean, hardcore. So, yeah. And that's how it is with all of you, with all of us. Our lives were horrible. We did horrible things, Maybe some were caught, maybe some weren't caught, maybe some went to jail, maybe some were bonded out and, had enough money to get out of it, These things occur. And we'll be going more into now these man-made things and the thoughts of man and why. But let me just say one thing before we close. Even those natural disasters that we just talked about, it is because of our lifestyles. It is because of man that those things have taken place. It's not that we have totally nothing to do with it. We do have something to do with it. Our forefathers had something to do with it. Everybody has something to do with what's going on with our weather all around this earth. Whether you're a politician and military, using microwave and HARP and all that stuff to change the weather, whether you're doing that or whether you're just doing some things and living the way you shouldn't and not really caring about the environment. Everybody's guilty of it to some degree. So let's change it. Let's learn about it, change it. The Peaceful Solution is here to help you do it and to help you learn to teach others to do it too. So remember, the next class is on June 23rd. That is Sunday night or Sunday evening at 5:30 p.m. We look forward to seeing everybody here again. And Chris should be the teacher on that night. Thank you.